Howdy mates. I get questions about the stances for fast shooting, so I thought we would go through the most common shooting stances. And I can tell you this as a short background. Back in the 50s when they held fast shooting competitions, there were no real standardization for this kind of shooting stances. A very big competition was called the Leather Slap, and a lot of famous shooters would go there. And there was a sheriff named Jack Weaver. He had an analytic mind, and he noticed that there was clearly a lot of misses going on. And he thought, well, it would be better to shoot with both hands. It would hit better, even though it would be a slower movement than what was going on there. And having no standardization, it was called a leather slap because you had a leather holster and you slapped your pistol and you drew it and you shoot from your hip, or you did this, or people did everything. So Jack Weaver brought his two-handed shooting stance to the competitions and made it. He did very well there. Another shooter who attended these competitions that you probably heard of, Jeff Cooper, he also commented this. He said something like, I apologize for my bad translations, but he said, better a fast bullseye than a lightning fast miss, and there was a point to this. So let's begin with the first shooting stance, the Jack Weaver, or the Weaver stance. Beginning from the bottom. I apologize to surroundings here. This is the only clear space I have to do this video. And I run a slight fever because I have a cold, so I may say a lot of stupid things, so bear with me. Weaver stance from the bottom. This is my dominant hand. I pull my dominant foot back, I angle it out. The knees are slightly bent, and the pistol, revolver, the handgun is held at shoulder height. The elbow has a slight bend, and the support hand comes in here, and notice that you tuck your elbow in. It's very close to the rifle stance, and I suppose it has its origin there. And this uses a push and pull configuration. You push the pistol forward and you pull with the support hand. And you lean your head into the sight. I hope you can see this. From the side it would be like this. The other side would be like this. Now, of course, it comes in a modified flavor. Later, another police officer named Ray Chapman, he improved this stance, and it was a subtle change. He went from this to straightening out the arm and locking the elbow. This gives more support and more control over the firing. And that's if you look from the side, this is it. Now, this might be a side thing. There's another stance also called the reverse Chapman, and it's a debatable stance, but I mention this because I heard that cross-dominant shooters may advantage from using it. And the reverse Chapman is just as it sounds. It's the reverse. You straighten out your support arm instead, and you bend your shooting arm. So something like this. If you're cross-dominant, this is my dominant hand, and my left eye is dominant, so I'm cross-dominant. The same goes if you're a lefty and you have your right eye. Now, if you look at this stance, when you engage targets horizontal, it has a big problem. The first is the weak side. You don't have such a good visual field of vision on the weak side. Also, you have a problem with dipping the sights. So if you go here, the strong side is okay, but if you imagine horizontally placed targets, when you go this way, you will dip the sight. You will also often twist the pistol. If I stand here and try to illustrate it, this is what happens. You dip it below the horizon, and this is not good. You should always have in mind that the more natural the stance is for you, you will have more stamina to keep it up, and it will be easier to fall into it quickly. And while all these shooting stances promote that you tuck in your neck, your turtlenecking, you notice many modern shooters, they don't do this. They have their head like they usually have and just lift the gun a little bit. And this is what I recommend you do. I'm demonstrating with a soft air gun, by the way. And it's no, I'm not aiming anywhere with a loaded gun. Now, of course, another stance followed this, and this was the isosceles stance. It had been around for a long time, but during the 80s, there were two very well-famed shooters, Rob Leatham and Brian Enos. They cleaned out almost all IPSC competition using the isosceles stance. Now, the isosceles, their feet are parallel, shoulder width perhaps a tad wider. Now, you can see this is the first isosceles triangle, and your arms are straight out and their head are tucked in. So this is an isosceles triangle. And some also say that the shoulders and the target would make a mathematical isosceles triangle of two equal sides. This is a very good stance for cross-dominant shooters because it places the handgun in the middle between the eyes, and you should always move your head. You should not move your gun, because if you move your gun like this, you will have problems with high misses, flying away to the side, and you change side depending on a lefty or a righty. Also, twisting your hand, or there are grips that are at the, I don't know, a 7-degree angle. They are a very stupid idea because you have a very unnatural trigger pull. So I highly recommend that you don't use any funky grips or move your shooting stance. You should move your head. And now this is, the isosceles is very good for this. The Beaver or Chapman, you tuck your chin in here, you rotate your head. You don't do this. But it even worsens the problems with field of vision. So the isosceles stance is very good, but of course it comes in a modified flavor. What happened here is some shooter pulled his strong hand foot back, angled it out just like in the Chapman or Beaver. And now, depending on the tutor you have, you will either tell it to have straight arms and lean into it, or bent elbows and lean into it. And I want to say on a side note, it's good to have bent elbows, because all these shooting stances, in dynamic shooting you move, and using this to walk around, or straight arms like this, well, it's just plain stupid. I don't even have to say anything more. I hope you just bounce your pistol around. You need to have bent knees and you need to have bent elbows. And if you look at the top shooters like Jeremy Michalek, you noticed when you're told to tuck your elbows in, he doesn't do it, and a lot of other top shooters don't do it, because the thing you're trying to defeat here is recoil, and this will throw the gun up, but you can't. They do this, they angle their elbows out, and you will have a recoil that goes straight back. I'm exaggerating this, I'm not shooting like a frog. I may look stupid, but I don't shoot like a frog. But I hope it illuminates why this is a good choice. And the turret movement you have in this shooting stance is using your waist.